Hello and welcome to E-Train Talks. My name is E-Train and I'm super excited today because we have a very special edition of the show. Today's podcast is in collaboration with Anyway magazine. Anyway is one of my absolute favorite magazines for tweens and teens. And Anyway has invited me to interview the amazing graphic novelist, artist, and cartoonist behind the fun and lovable NAT ENOUGH graphic novel book series. The award-winning author, Maria Scrivan. Hi Maria, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you.
I am so grateful that you have the chance to talk to you and that you are here to talk with me. So, for those who don't already know, Maria is the creator behind the syndicated comic strip Half Full, and she's also the talented storyteller behind the award-winning graphic novel series Nat Enough, which was an instant New York Times bestseller. It was named one of the year's best graphic novels by the Washington Post and a mighty go recommended book, to name a few awards and recognition that it's received. This is all pretty amazing, everybody. And now we get to dig into your story, Maria, the story behind the story. And so, without further ado, let's dive in. So,
Okay.
my first question for you is, as an avid reader, I had already seen your books in the bookshelves, and now I had the chance to actually read them. I had the chance to talk with you, which I'm super excited about. And I can see why your books are loved among so many tweens and teens. They're super fun, quirky, and relatable stories. So, would you mind sharing a bit about your Not Enough series to kick off the questions?
Sure. So it's the entire series is based on my own childhood experiences
Oh,
and
wow.
feelings. The big thing is the feelings that I had in middle school. And um, the way it went for me, sixth grade was in elementary school. So it's sort of like the cross between the two of
Mhm.
sixth and seventh grade. So I
Right.
went back and did a deep dive into my own experiences, and some of them weren't so great. And what I love about being a cartoonist is I sort of get to put everything through the filter of humor. So the stuff that I can make fun of now was not funny at the time at all. But I sort of went back and I started out by writing just vignettes of things that happened in middle school, and then all these different stories got strung together and became the Nat stories. And I also pull in emotions I have now. So for instance, Nat for Nothing is all about working through self-doubt, and in perfect creative energy, that book was the hardest book I ever wrote. I rewrote it countless times. I inked the whole book and re-inked it. And here I am writing about self-doubt and I'm living it. So a lot of current feelings ended up in the series as well.
That's awesome. And middle school is a very tough time. And I mean, it's interesting that you're able to hold on to these memories and channel them because at the time when you go through terrible things in middle school, maybe just go through, I guess, roadblocks in your journey, it can feel miserable. It can feel scary. How am I going to get over this hill? How am I going to climb up and find the other side? And you were able to channel these emotions that you felt so long ago, felt in your childhood, and you were able to create a fabulous series. And I'm super excited that we had the chance to talk all about it because we've got some great questions, at least in my opinion. And starting off, Not Enough discusses in great detail the friendship struggles and heartbreaks that come with transitioning to middle school. When moving to new schools, many kids attempt to stay close to their elementary school friends, but oftentimes kids end up drifting apart, and that's okay. So, can you share why it's important to normalize drifting apart and finding new friends with similar interests as you?
Absolutely. So in Nat Enough, one of the big storylines is Nat gets to middle school and her best friend from second grade on just no longer wants to be friends with her anymore.
Right.
So poor Nat makes it all about her and, decides, oh, she must be doing something wrong and that she has to change to get her friend back. When the reality of it was that person just didn't really line up with her. And I think that happens all through life, that people are friends and then maybe our interests change, our beliefs change, our character, like what we need and what we look for in a person changes, kind of thing, or
Right.
we'll, like our needs change, and it's a good thing. And I say in the book, and I think it was Flo who always comes out and says these little nuggets of wisdom, and that's why I love trying Flo, to surround yourself with people that lift you up instead of put you down. So if you're in a relationship with, even if someone's been friends for years and they start being mean to you, that person shouldn't be in your life. So I think it's just learning to pay attention to how you feel with other people. And I love telling this story. So Nat reflects my own life very well. And although Lily and Zoe and the supporting characters are not a specific person, they're more like an amalgam. So like Zoe's like all my favorite people's traits rolled into one, and Lily's kind of like a bunch of negative traits rolled into one. After my kind of Lily story happened, the friends I made I'm still friends with, especially my best friend that like so would be my Zoe from that time. We're still friends. So
That's awesome.
decades later, like that is such a meaningful friendship to me. So it's I think I know all of these things work out, and when you're in it, it's hard to imagine that, and it's such a painful thing to go through. And I feel like a lot of it, the Nat books or books I wish I had when I was growing up to sort of navigate these difficult things.
Right. And I think, like, some people might say, oh, when your friends in middle school aren't going to stay your friends forever. But when you find that perfect friend, the one that's right for you, I mean, that relationship, that friendship can stay forever. It can be something that can be a
Yeah.
big part of your life. I read that while preparing for your novel, All Is Not Lost, you traveled to Philadelphia for research and visited many of the locations mentioned in the story. So is this something you do often when writing Nat story adventures and all your stories as a whole? And are there any interesting or funny stories you can share from your behind the writing travels or research?
Oh yeah. So I wish I should write more. First of all, I love travel, and I get so inspired by travel. And I should probably write more Nat travel books because it was so fun to go to Philadelphia. So I don't know how I managed to do this, but I picked a random day where there were probably 100 class trips happening at the same time. So I put myself on one. It was this crazy long line. I just kind of got at the end of the line, followed the class into, I think it was Congress Hall. And I started talking to the teacher who was amazing. And she told me they were doing a scavenger hunt and sort of explained all about that. So that sort of so much of my conversation with her and the idea of having a scavenger hunt ended up in the book.
That's
And then
awesome.
I went to all the different places. So that, yeah, that conversation, I mean, she was so excited to hear what I was doing. The Rocky scene. So if you ever go to Philadelphia, the Rocky sculpture, all day and night people are out there flexing like Rocky. So that moment of me watching laughing watching people flexing ended up in the book. So a lot of just stuff that I wandered around, I was just wandering around with my sketchbook taking notes, and so much of that experience ended up as scenes in the book, which was fun. And the Mutter Museum, which is fantastic. It's a scientific museum. And I went in and those people were wonderful. We went through all the drawers. They have all these like extra exhibits and they gave me the whole history of the museum and all that. So yeah, I loved it. It was great. I had a
That's
lot of fun.
amazing. It does sound a lot of fun. And now for some exciting news for all of your Nat Enough fans. You have a new book in the series coming out in March of 2025. So will you share a bit about your newest story in the series?
Yeah, so that's a couple weeks. I can't believe it because it was, I've been
Woo.
waiting for so long. So that's Nat a Chance. And this is all about Nat, who does not think she's an athlete, just like I did not think I was an athlete growing up. I was complete klutz, always getting picked last for gym. This is a very personal story. And Nat sort of gets roped into doing a triathlon with her best friend, Zoe. And she is forced way out of her comfort zone. And it's all about the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. The things we say over and over again, like, I can't sing, I'm bad at math, I'm not
Right.
an athlete. What if we challenge that? What if that's not true? What if, one day somebody told you couldn't sing and then you believe them? And for the rest of your life, now you think you can't sing, which was also me, which I've also challenged. But I love this idea of challenging this thought because as an adult, I had joined the soccer team in high school and I did not want to run the mile warm up. And then when I got to college, some friends sort of like with very positive peer pressure convinced me to join the rowing team in college. And that was my first sort of athletic thing. And that fostered a lifelong love of sports. And then as an adult, I joined a running group and did triathlon. So it was sort of like that's a wider time frame. But the idea of not being an athlete was all about my childhood. And I have this great photo from rare presentations of me at field day. I don't know how my dad got this shot. I'm just like about to hit the ground. Like I am 1 foot from the grass and he got my picture. And I used to be mortified by that picture. Now it's published in one of the books, actually. Now I love it. But yeah, I just like this idea of what if the things we tell ourselves aren't true?
Yeah. And a lot of the times, the things that we don't tell ourselves, or the things that we do tell ourselves, aren't true. And when you try to push that barrier or push yourself, not necessarily to your limit, but sort of test yourself, give yourself the chance to believe in yourself, even if you might be proven right, it's so important to go out of your comfort zone because if you're stuck in this little box that you put yourself in, and eventually you might just find yourself trying to get out, but you can't because you pushed
Yeah,
yourself into these boundaries and put yourself into this hole that you can't climb out of.
yeah,
So
definitely.
I've not come across many middle grade books that dig into the struggles that kids have with sports because gym and PE can be a struggle sometimes. They can be
Oh,
very
yeah.
scary and daunting for a lot of kids. So can you share why you decided to focus on this theme in your new story? And I mean, you talked a bit about how you had the same emotions, but what inspired you to write the book now?
Well, all athletics, like I said, is such a huge part of my life. And it was something that I wanted to kind of share. And I think there's so many metaphors for life in general with sports. And funny enough, the best training I had for writing graphic novels was training for a long distance triathlon because it was having this crazy goal of something that just seemed impossible and then breaking it down into smaller steps and then breaking those steps into like how much do I have to accomplish each day and head down, go forward, even when I don't feel like it, even when I'm tired. So interestingly enough, those two worlds really merged on a lot of levels. So, and I also still love running and cycling and all that. So I kind of wanted to bring that sort of sensibility into the series.
I love it. And triathlons can be very grueling. They can be very scary. I've actually talked to somebody who competed in the Olympics for triathlons. Like, I could not imagine that. I would do the running part and then I'd pass out. So,
Yeah.
I
Well, I
mean,
don't know how I did it now. I mean, I did two full Ironmans and I really don't know. And I don't know if you know what that is. It's a
I
2.4
do. Yeah.
mile swim. It's a then followed by 100, what is it? 100-mile bike ride and then a 112-mile bike ride and then a full marathon. And I really, to this day, I'm like, how did I do that again? But like I said, I broke it down into small steps. And I don't do those now. I don't think I could have that intense training plan with the books, but maybe that's just a story I'm telling myself. I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
You know, it's funny, my bar mitzvah tutor actually did run like, always does the Ironman. So, that was
Oh,
it's like a full circle moment. I mean, I could never. So,
well, you never know.
like you're
I
like,
didn't
I mean,
think
I
I
guess, yeah,
could.
you never know.
You never know. I think I mean, it's training and
Yeah.
dedication, and it ends up it is a lot of sacrifice to fit in that training plan. But
Yeah.
yeah, you never know.
Well, props to you for going out and doing that. That's amazing. And I mean, I read that many of the events, including in your books, come from your own childhood experience. And we talked a little bit about that, and we know that that is true. But did you keep a journal when you were a child? And how do you kind of grasp onto these memories and try to kind of work your mind back into that time when you were in middle school?
It's something funny about memory. Childhood stuff is really prominent in my mind. So I remember my childhood phone number, my
Oh,
best
wow.
friend's phone number. But then, like, ask me what I had for lunch yesterday. I'm like, I have no idea. So I did actually keep a journal, and I think so many of those stories were such powerful moments in my life that I'll probably never forget them. Having your best friend not want to be friends with you anymore. Completely bailing on the hurdles and being embarrassed and like I think some of those strong emotions kind of stick with you. But I did have always kept journals and diaries, and actually a lot of it came from my Garfield diary. This is what I had in 6th grade. So I went back and got a lot of my, I'm not going to let anybody read it, but here's my little 6th grade writing. I went back and got a lot of the friend things and a lot of the feelings from that. And I've always kept journals and sketchbooks all through my life. And I always say when I do school visits that if you're interested in doing that at all, it's so amazing to see what you were thinking and feeling at different times of your life. It's really fun to sort of go back years later and see what's there. But I wasn't writing it with the thoughts that I might need this someday. I just was sort of expressing feelings. And even my journals, like I have sketchbooks for ideas, but my journals are just letting my mind run out and just, yeah, expressing all my feelings, but not necessarily doing anything with them.
Right. And I think what you said about the fact that like there are such prominent feelings like from our childhoods in our mind, that's so true. I mean, I think of it sometimes when I mess up, whether I say something I shouldn't, or I mean, an experience happens that kind of just does. I mean, some people say what happens in your childhood isn't really life altering, but sometimes like things people say, insults, maybe compliments, they stick with you. And
Yeah,
your books like yours, they really help kids understand that every moment in your life is important. So make the most of them. And when you believe that you can't do something, that isn't, I feel like that's kind of the opposite of belief. Like when you don't believe in yourself, that's not believing that you can't do something. That's telling yourself you can't do something because you don't really believe.
exactly.
So
Yeah, and words matter. Words
words
really
do matter.
matter. What we say, a friend of mine has this neat way of kind of taking words. So she says spelling is like a spell. So you're saying words and those things. And so these beliefs become our thoughts become our beliefs, and that becomes a reality. So if we say over and over and over again enough times, just what you said, it's like the reverse. So now we've reinforced that thought that you can't do that. And I also think, especially that age that kids feel really alone, and adults, in their feelings. And there's that wonderful quote about the more personal, the more universal. I find that is so true in my stories. When I share something that I'm thinking I've got to be the only person who ever dealt with this, but let me share it. And then so many other people have that same thought and feeling, and then they don't feel alone. And that's why I always say that we all need to share our stories. It's really important because it's amazing how many other people are having the exact same experiences we are and feel completely alone in those thoughts and feelings.
Right. So, as both the writer and illustrator of your stories, which comes first, the words or the pictures? And I mean, whatever your answer is, has this always been the case, or has your creative process changed over time?
So, okay, so this is going to be sort of two-part. The first, and I have a bit more visuals. So the first, this is sort of an outline of the story. So I figure out in the story what the beginning, the middle, and the end is. And then I actually use a five plot point. I do beginning, turning point, middle, beginning, inciting incident, middle, turning point, end. So once I sort of know what those pieces are, and they may not come in order, I may figure out what the end is and then figure out the middle. I write up an outline, and that outline is very much like a roadmap. So if we were going to go on a road trip, we know where we're going, but I don't know what's going to happen in the story. And that is purely a writing, drawing process. So I have a sketch here, which I will hold up. This is from the first
Cool.
NAT book, and I don't even think these words made it into the book. But I am such a visual communicator and learner, I have to do both. On the fourth book, which was ridiculously difficult for me, I tried just writing a script. I was like, you know what? This will save some time in the editing process. I'll just write the script and then we'll go back and forth and then I'll spend time sketching it out. For me, that does not work because I need all of it. I need the expressions. I need the nuances. I need the humor. I can't even, I'm drawing with my hand as I'm talking. I need both. I need to both write and draw at the same time. So even if it's really, really rough and sketched out, I will always sort of start with a combination of the two.
Now, this question is asked a lot, probably to you, but can you share what sparked you to create the Not Enough series? What inspired you to say, hey, I'm going to get my thoughts and I'm going to share my experiences or similar experiences to that I experienced when I was in middle school? And did you have any idea it would be and I guess so relatable to so many kids and readers from all over the world?
I had no idea of any of it. And what's funny is I had one book. I had Not Enough. That was it. I didn't even understand the concept of a series, I think, at the time. I didn't even have I wasn't thinking, oh, this should be a series. I had an idea and I was going through my own feelings of feeling not enough and started writing out the vignettes I mentioned before of just little stories. And then I was like, these could be funny. And then I started thinking of it was going to be, I thought it was going to be more of like a wimpy kid type spot illustration prose thing. And then I saw a friend of mine who's a graphic novelist speak, and I thought, oh my God, of course this has to be a graphic novel. I'm a cartoonist. I have to use like the full, like bright colors and all this. So once I figured that out, I went into it. But I didn't have two books, but I did get a two-book deal. So I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm going to figure it out. And then as the series grew, I just kept getting more and more stories. And I believe creativity is a lot like exercise, where when you start running, you can, as you practice more, you can run more, or if you do push-ups, you can do more. So creativity, I really believe the more you create, the more creative you become, the more ideas you start to write down, the more ideas you start to notice. So I think it's all part of that same process. So I have many more Nat stories to tell too.
So when you're out in the wild and perchance you may see somebody reading your book, or just you kind of know in your back head that there are kids around the world reading your book, what's the best part about seeing kids and knowing kids are reading your story? How does it make you feel?
Well, I usually get teary-eyed, and there's one story in particular that I just had a parent tell me. It was from a 7.5-year-old who was reading Absolutely Nat, and she wanted to get earrings, and she was too scared to go. So she went to the mall to get her earrings, and she just was like, I can't do this, went home. And then a few days later said to her mom, and I have a visual for this too, she said, I don't want to let fear keep me from doing amazing things. And fear will keep me from doing amazing things until you stop letting it. So that's this page from my book. And her mom was like, where did that come from? So she showed her the book. And she was all empowered. She went and got her earrings. But the part that really pushed me completely and turned me completely into a puddle, she that night said to her mom, I am so proud of myself. And that meant the world to me. And I mean, I'm really writing all of these stories to heal myself. This has been a journey for me to process old feelings, to look at them through humor, to heal myself. And the fact that these same stories are resonating with kids now means the absolute world to me.
Might we see a new Nat book at some point in the future besides Not a Chance? Maybe after that.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance of that happening. I have many more Nat stories to tell, and also a younger reader series too, which I'm really excited about.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know I was saying it's not enough. We need more Nat books. So I'm glad that we know that there's going to be more out in the future. And another question I'm curious to ask is, so I know you've been interviewed by many people, but is there a fun fact about yourself that not many people might know about you? And will that potentially be featured in a story one day?
Huh. Oh, let's see. Well, I love animals, and also animals seem to really love me. I'm a vegetarian. Maybe they know I'm not going to eat them or something. So they always like there's always animals in my orbit. And friends have called me like Snow White because there's always animals coming around. So yeah, I would be fun to integrate that. And when I was growing up, I was an only child. I still am actually. And my parents, I think, were like, okay, then just get as many pets as you want. So at one point, I had a dog, a cat, two gerbils, a bird, a goldfinch. So I had this whole thing of, and in my life, I've had a pet chicken, which did not, I don't know why, but my grandfather gave me a chicken as a pet for my birthday, which was odd because I lived in a very residential area. So the poor chicken like walked around the basement and laid one egg and then went to the farm, the actual farm, not like the soup pot. I had a pet rabbit. So I've had lots of pets in my life. So it would be very fun to write about that because I
That
love
would be an
animals. And I have
amazing
a dog
story.
now and I just adore him.
And we have a dog and a cat in your story already, so maybe we
That's
want
right.
more animals.
Yeah, the dog is my dog now, and the cat was my cat. Well, the cat was actually a mix of a cat from growing up and a cat I had an adult as an adult, and the cat and the dog did not get along at all. So that was the dynamic of cat and Treat. And I always mention this, but Treat got his name because my dog Toby will not come when I call him ever. So I
Right.
have to say I have a Treat, and I always said I should have just changed his name to Treat. So I did in the book.
I love it. And one question that I'd love to ask authors is, was there someone who inspired you to pursue your writing journey? A parent, a teacher, an author, or a role model?
I do. So I have the first graphic novel I've ever written in sixth grade, which won a book award. And actually, the last third of the Nat book is that story.
Oh, wow.
And that came from, yeah, she goes to the Capitol, which is the capital here in Connecticut. So this is a crazy story, which it was so perfect. I was completely stuck on the ending of the first book, completely and totally stuck. And there's this beautiful beach in town with picnic tables that I used to write at. So I was trying to remember like more things about sixth grade. And as I'm walking across the parking lot, I ran into my sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Lamazzo, who we did this project together. So she not only inspired the idea of me doing this book that day, I went up to her and I was like, hey, did you teach at Coscop School? And she remembered me and that I loved to write and draw and where I lived and everything. And we sat down and talked, and having that conversation ignited this whole cascade of memories of the book. I had forgotten that I did the book, was in the book contest. So that whole thing became at the end of the book. And we stayed in touch. And it's so crazy that I hadn't run into her. We lived in adjacent towns. Like, why didn't I bump into her in the grocery store or something? Like, why was it that day? So we've kept in touch, and she really was an incredible, incredible teacher and really inspired me then and now. So, Mrs. Lamazzo.
That's amazing. And who knew that a sixth grade graphic novel that you wrote might end up becoming the inspiration for a best-selling graphic novel that kids all around the world relate to. That's probably an amazing feeling. I mean, if you could go back and tell your sixth grade self that that was the case, I mean, they probably would be over the moon.
I know I always say that uh, actually Jim Davis, who wrote Garfield, blurbed my book. So I always say I need a time machine to go back and say, you're never going to believe this. Because all I wanted to do ever was be a cartoonist. I think my head would blow up if I went back to my sixth grade self and said, you're going to have a comic in the newspaper, you're going to write books, and then because I read every Garfield book when they came out. I was such a huge Garfield fan. And then, yeah, Jim Davis blurbed the book. So it all came full circle somehow.
Right. Yeah. So, this is a question that I ask every author that I interview. If you could be or meet any literary character, it could be your favorite author or your favorite character in a book, who would it be and why?
That's a tough call because there's so many.
Right.
I was recently thinking and writing about the Lorax from Dr. Seuss, and I would love to know what the Lorax had to say about what's going on today because the Lorax spoke for the trees. I love the forest. I run in the trails a lot. So it'd be interesting to know what the opinion of what's going on with nature would be today.
That is a fantastic answer. And I mean, I've got to say, real quick, thank you so much for sharing such thoughtful answers, Maria. This has been such an amazing and entertaining and interesting, a fun interview that I won't soon forget.
Thank you. This was really fun. You have great questions. I really appreciate them.
And I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to speak with me. And I'm sure everybody reading Anyway Magazine or watching this interview live on YouTube or wherever it may be, they're all going to line up at libraries, bookstores, indie bookstores, Amazon, wherever books are sold, and they're going to check out your stories because they are adorable, they are amazing. And I mean, whether you're an adult or a kid, you can truly relate to them. And I think that's what's really special about your stories.
Oh,
And I'm
thank
so
you.
happy Anyway Magazine has given me this opportunity to shine a light on you and your fantastic books. And everybody, I've been talking to the New York Times bestselling author Maria Scrivan, author of the award-winning middle grade series Nat Enough. To learn more about Maria's writing journey, you can find her at mariascrivan.com. That's MariaScrivan.com. It's also in the description and wherever. That's all the time we have for today. I hope everybody listening will keep coming back for more book talks. And until next time, be safe, keep reading, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.